Josh, I'm sorry you were standing here waiting for me. First off, I want to give a big shout out to the museum, right? None of this is possible without the Cannabis History Museum. So the people that are here for the HomeGrow workshop, thank you. I appreciate you coming, but also don't forget the fact that it takes a long time to soak in what this place has to offer to the cannabis community. So I encourage all of you to come back more than once, enjoy your time, soak up the situation that's here. Unbelievable resources. Down here they have workshops, they have shows, movie nights, musical concerts. It's all a great event time. But upstairs they have the library. And in that library is where the real fundamental understandings of cannabis can be absorbed. So I encourage you, whether you're a breeder, whether you're just an whether you're a breeder, whether you're an activist, a cultivator, a processor, or just someone in love with cannabis, this is the place. You will find no other place like it. We got some guests in from out of town. We got Nadia here from Brazil. She's out of here. She might be in this room. We got Benjamin here, which is with Ladia. We got Mike for Ferrari. My man here who is in for the second time. So tonight is an international kind of event, and that is very, very cool. Please feel free to ask questions as we go along, and keep in mind that your support and the people that you talk to about this place and the support and engagement that you bring will help keep this thing going for further generations. Luckily tonight, as we talk, we still got the founder of the museum in the house tonight, Donnie Worcester. He's the guy in the bib, by the way. He is the GOAT. By GOAT, I mean greatest of all time with the cannabis community around here. So, very happy to be here. I would like to introduce the people that I got up here. I'm honored to have all of them by our side. I will start with my partner and co-founder at Appalachian Girls Cannabis, Matt. Give him a hi, Matt. Look at him, he's already red like a tomato.
Thanks for coming back, our first timer. It's great. Hopefully we can educate and create and just learn, figure out together about this plant.
And we got Brad from Heartbeat Homestead. Hey Brad.
Hi Brad. Thanks for having me again.
And Ronnie from So Ohio Boys.
Hi guys, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming, and we'll get this conversation going. What have we got on the chopping board?
Early flower is on the schedule on the docket for tonight, right?
Yep.
Some of the stuff we're going to cover.
Sexing your plants, male, female, or hermaphrodite. Water and nutrients, and integrated pest management.
Right on. Where you guys all growing outdoor, indoor? Anybody growing indoor weed in here? Everybody outdoor? Yep. What's the outdoor? You got both ways, right?
Yeah, both ways.
Every way. Me too.
Yeah, my car too.
Nice. Oh yeah, mobile or grow. Like having some mobile bus with grows weed and drive around the country.
Where do you put the greenhouses?
Greenhouses?
Outdoors?
I don't have none.
No, where do we classify that?
Oh, yeah.
That's a whole different thing. There's indoor, outdoor, and then there's
Kind of like a hybrid. Hybrid.
If you're adding lights and that kind of stuff, then
Yeah.
it's mixed lighting and
There's some greenhouses that look like indoor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've seen some. Absolutely. I've seen some really nice indoor. Like Jeff's outdoor last year. His, yeah, absolutely. It looked like indoor. It's just, I don't know, man. It's still like in the drying to cure. I still feel like greenhouse weed still tastes like outdoor weed at the end. I don't know why. That's just my personal opinion. That's just my personal opinion. Like out of all outdoor weed, I always want to smoke indoor. I've had a lot of good outdoor weed last year from my buddy out in Colorado. It's still in my box. I got it and I smoked a little bit and I just went back to my indoor. I don't know why. It's just, I can distinguish the taste somehow. I just like indoor weed.
So depending on where your plants are at, I guess, whether you have them in pots or in the ground outside, we're getting to the time where you're looking at about the last 2 weeks before your plants are gonna start transitioning into flower. So early flower and bud sets and things of that nature. So like Brad mentioned, and I know we've probably reiterated this every talk, but about integrated pest management and figuring out what's gonna work best and figuring out what'll hopefully hold on long term, because you're gonna start having buds soon where you're not gonna wanna be spraying things on your plants in contact with buds that you're gonna be consuming, I guess. So, knowing that, hopefully you've been having an IPM regimen this whole time we've been going, but if not, now would be the time to, or maybe you don't want to do that type of thing, which is fine, but now would be the time to get your microscope out and kind of really examine and see if you have any pests or molds or any of that type of things prior to going into flower. So it's been pretty humid and it's been pretty rainy, which can cause all kinds of things to go awry. It's been, like Kristen said, it's been completely different grow season, our second legal time to do it outside, completely different than what it was last year. We were in the middle of however long drought to this year being heavy water frequently and very high humidity, so kind of two different ends of the spectrum there. So two different new things to look for, I guess, this year. And now is going to be the crucial point to be able to identify some of those things, to control them now before, like we said, like I mentioned, before you get to a flowering stage. With that being said,
The things you
what
want
does
to,
that look like for you, I guess? Right?
things you want to start looking for, is, are you noticing any holes in your leaves? Are you noticing any webs anywhere? Are you noticing, little tiny drops of things that, which would be caterpillar poo or moths, or, if you're noticing your, plants sprucing up when it starts to lighten because it's activating the nitrogen in the air for free. Just now's the time to get on top of those things and get ahead of them before they're ahead of you.
And also, while you're observing, just look at your plant health too. While you're looking for bugs, just examine leaves. Are we praying? Are we deficient? Or do you have other things? And just keep that in mind as well too, because now would be a great time to try to make adjustments before flower and where it's going to be trying to work and grow and sprout and shoot. So something else to just observe, I guess, at this point in time.
Yeah, so, so this is what I do, so, one second. I have this flower here, and I'm gonna tell my buddy, like, before he opens it, because he's a home grower, that, this weed is phenomenal, I love it, I smoke it, but I had a little bit of mites on it. So that's the type of communication that you have and you need to be honest with and honest about. If you see something in your garden, you need to let people know. That's how serious pests are when you're dealing with the inner community and you're around a whole bunch of people. Like for me to smoke a little bit of mites with me and the homeboy that don't have no plants, I would much rather have that than any of these sprays that you may be thinking about spraying on your plants as they enter flower. So touching on the fact of what we were talking about earlier, which is getting ahead of these things, getting ahead of these pests now while you have the opportunity is going to cost you, is going to save you tons and tons of time and resources moving forward. Same with nutrient additions. As you switch into flowering, keep in mind, if you're organic and you're adding top dressings and amendments as you go, these things take time. And unless you have lightning strike, like Brad was talking about, or legumes that are converting to NH4, which is, what the organic form of nitrogen into NO3 or whatever it be, it takes time. Nitrates and nitrites that you use in everyday bottle fertilizer, those happen immediately. But if you're trying to add NH4, the organic form of nitrogen, or any other amendment in the organic form, you need to hit that hard at the transition between veg and flower. And to once again, we got cut short on the other combo, which is indoor versus outdoor, right? I think there's a great place for outdoor. And it is in hash production. It is an edible production. It is in any sort of cannabinoid condension production that you want to do. But when it comes to the best tasting flower that you combust through a joint, it is hard to find something that's going to beat that indoor effort. And that's why I was adamant at the State House and telling the legislators, like, listen, there's no reason to use all this. But like, we're creating a monopoly for indoor growers to produce edibles for us in an indoor cultivation. That's a carbon footprint that we don't need. It doesn't matter what's in your edibles. Like, you're not going to taste the uniqueness of that flower when it's in a gummy. That should be produced outdoors all the time. The only thing that we need, in my opinion, and I am snooty about the weed, but is craft cannabis. That's the only thing that should be using the type of carbon footprint that's associated with indoor grow lighting. The type of shit that we produce under an indoor grow light, it's hard to argue that that ain't worth the carbon footprint. But that ain't what's going on right now in the state of Ohio. And usually, what you buy, even if it does look good, cannabis is a connection that, you know, has networked us all together. Sometimes it is something far even past the entourage effect. It's the feeling and knowing and loving and care that went into that flower that can't be transcribed through a package. There's my rant for the day. I'm done. Sorry.
So back into early flowering there. So here's a great example. You know, some people, if you haven't on, we'll ask Ron to step in here because he likes. But kind of on the pest management and fungal side of it, you know, this is a great plant. Oh, this will do great. But focusing this up and cleaning up some of this lower stuff like we've talked about to focus other areas and kind of, I guess if you will, call, for less of a better term, bonsaiing your cannabis plant to the way that you like it, you know. That's a great way to help control some of these pests and eliminate by taking Ronnie, or if somebody else wants to come up too, we can focus this plan up to what would be like.
Somebody class like to try it? I'll
frame
finish it with
it,
no, but
body
you
of-
guys, would somebody like to try it and trim it up? Like, go ahead.
Focus this up and make it a frame or a nice skeletal
Thanks for
system.
stepping up.
Thanks, bro. Coming in the rain.
Thanks for stepping
Yeah.
up.
You need scissors or a blade?
I would be a little bit. I mean, I tried to grow a Ronnie thumb. Anyone else? Like a little thumbnail. They got on my nerves, so I cut it.
So that can be a great way, and that's gonna be a good time, because you're gonna focus out, like we said, like I mentioned, going into early flowering, it's gonna set bud size.
Here, Ronnie. I got a blade. If it's anyway.
Can I say a little something?
There's a
About
lot of this smaller stuff
Yes.
that would be worthwhile. Not that I say it's worth less, because it's gonna, like Josh said, that can be great hash material for edibles, things of that nature. But if you wanna make bigger, nicer buds, you wanna try to eliminate that, and it helps with pest management.
And now's the time to do it, because we're talking about pre-flowering, so like now is the time, we're still in bed, you know, the stuff we're talking about is what's coming next, which, you know, around, depending on the sunlight intensity you have, if you have a shade tree, genetics, you know, sometime between the beginning of August
First
and
week.
middle of August is when you're gonna really start to set flowers.
See bud sets, yeah.
And
That's what I'm missing.
so now's your time to kind of create that canopy or create that tall tree or whatever it is you're going after. And when you're doing this, when you're interacting with your plant, this is also a time where you might notice pests that you're not going to notice just by walking by, looking at it occasionally on the way to work, or on the way to the dog, or on the way to smoke your joint, or, you know, this is the time to really get in there and see what's going on with your plant.
Mike, Senor Mike,
Yeah, can I say a word?
if you speak up so everyone can hear you.
Stand up. No, I can't.
He's got dog.
So, no, I just wanted to say, you know, in this debate that we're going through about indoor, outdoor, what an old friend of mine told me, he says, we used to grow outdoors with the sunlight. That was maravilloso, right? It was beautiful. But then the helicopter showed up, right? So we had to go under the trees, right? And then we went inside the house with the lamps. So this fact that we're growing indoors is something new, relatively, right? Maravilloso, beautiful, right? And it's a different approach than the one I had 20 years ago, because now the technology has developed in indoor things, you know, like the light cycles. It's because a few years ago it was not ecological sustainable, you know, to grow indoor. It was a big thing, and now we're all taking care of that matter, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I want to say. The history of why we went indoor is different of why we go indoor now, nowadays.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Great point.
So let's talk a little bit about as your early flowering as we go into that, you know, 3 weeks from now, arguably, you know, two to 6 weeks from now. Everybody knows the primary nutrients, NPK. This is when you're going to start to see your pre-flowers start to set. That's when some varieties do require a little bit more nitrogen to keep going, but that's when you're usually going to slow down your nitrogen input, and you're going to increase your phosphorus and your potassium and your micronutrients. And because if you over fertilize with the nitrogen as you're going into the flower, you'll produce bigger, leafier bud, basically, and it'll hold that nitrogen in. And I think that a lot is like a testament to the indoor quality, is that with the indoor, you get it, you're feeding a regiment, you have, especially if you're feeding a line, and then you have a period that you flush your flower, and you can control that, whereas outside, there's a little less control, unless you're taking control now. When you're, like Josh was saying, if you're top dressing organics, it's going to take a little more time to activate, and then it's also going to take more time for that to get used up by your plant. And yeah, so now, you know, is the time to start thinking about what kind of phosphorus, potassium, micronutrients are you going to be using, like what brand, or if you're going to be using the compost, and what is it high in those things versus high in nitrogen, like horse compost versus, well, Josh is the compost guy, but so, you know, those are the things you need to think about on your feeding schedule now.
It's weird to think about, right? But when it comes to how we talk about organic or not organic, it's hard for us to remember and keep in mind that plants don't actually take up organic forms of nitrogen. Plants take up nitrate and nitrite. But the organic form of nitrogen, NH4, ammonia, needs converted. And that conversion happens via microorganisms in the food web. So although we call them inorganic forms of nitrogen, they come from organic sources because we're putting organic nitrogen into that situation, and we're letting the microbes convert organic forms of nitrogen into inorganic forms so that they can take it up into their system. So just keep in mind, if you're digging in and reading stuff and you hear something like that, That doesn't mean your crop's inorganic, that's just chemistry and in the rhizosphere and how things happen. But that's what all of us organic farmers rely on. We rely on the conversion of NH4 into nitrates and nitrites in order for them to be taken up. NH4 can be taken up, but in very, very small amounts as far as my understanding goes. So, soil food web, that's what it's all about. You can throw all the organics on that you want, but if you don't have that soil food web connection, you're just throwing on something that a plant essentially can't take. So think about your whole system as a whole, not just nitrogen, not just, if you're starting to see yellow in your plant going into late flowering and you're relying on conversion of organic form of nitrogen into the form that plants can take up, you got a haul. You almost need to be better gardeners. If you're using organics, you need to foresee these things quick. Fall in love with your plants. Find the problems that you see going on in the leaf so you can attack these things quick. If you're using synthetics, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be on top of it because you got everything you need in that petroleum carbon footprint hogging synthetic bottle that you have. That happens quick. You can use those things quick if it's a nitrate or nitrite forms.
Well, there's other, like the turf teas, those are pretty fast acting type.
Sorry, the what?
Turf tea,
So,
It's a Roots organic product? Is that-
micro, like a micro charge, is what they call it, right? It's like micro charge or something.
Yeah. And well, so that like,
It's just a compost fertilizer mix that you can mix in our top dress and make it concentrate and feed with. I don't know if it's certified organic, but I think it's organic. I don't know. But not necessarily like with petroleum based, I guess.
yeah, and that's a product that you can brew and
Right.
bubble, and so then it becomes aerobic, becomes active, or you can top dress it and let it water it in, and it's slower. So it's like there are a few, we'll say organic products that, depending on if you activate it by bubbling it with, is everybody familiar with bubbling? Like an aquarium air stone, a bucket of water, I'll say a bucket, if you've got a bunch, a barrel, or, and most of the time it's a relatively 24-hour process, and you put the recommended amount of nutrient powder in the water and run your air stones for the amount of time. You don't go over the time because then you can start creating dangerous things. But like so, yeah. And so like now, and that's like what Josh was saying, and it's all these are tied in with the pest management and the nutrients, is that if you don't have the proper biology, then you're either not making things available or you're wasting your money. Whereas like if you add humic acids and you add bacterias and you add mycorrhizae inoculants, those things do the work for you. And they also are responsible for plant functions, and they help mitigate stress. They act just like us, where it's like you feed your plants those things, they're healthier. You're in a room full of sick people, you might get a little bit of something, but you'll be much better off, or you won't feel sick at all. And those things, now's the time to start adding them, especially with this weather we have going on.
what is there some examples, I mean, because I'm like, what are some of the examples of those, what did you say, mycorrhizae?
Yeah, like different product names. Plant Success is like a very abundant, available one. They make the great white shark. They make the orca. They make
These are organic as well?
Yes.
Myco Apply. Yeah, there is another one, and Mycos. Mycos is really, I don't know their backstory on their company, like what they stand for, but their product is super affordable compared to a lot of the other products. For $20, you can get a bag of either the micro or their bacteria,
The
and
Azos too, use it with it, I use it put together.
and they're like
Really well.
their product. You can see the results.
Yeah, definitely, especially in the root system, it's really
That
incredible.
comes in granular form too, kind of a timer.
Just remember, some of those, it takes what, 60 to 90 days to actually
Break all the way down, cause yeah, you'll be transplanting, you have like a big glob, I've done that.
Well, like, actually, most of these packages that are sold, they don't they might brand as a mycorrhizal product, right? But like, most of them are just a microbial product. Mycorrhizals do take 90 days. A lot of the cannabis industry, in my opinion, overemphasized on mycorrhizals for a really long time. Because mycorrhizals, one, like Matt said, take 90 days to establish.
or make the
And
connection.
not only that, they won't establish at all if you have adequate amounts of phosphorus in your garden. That's what it takes to bond the plant-fungi relationship, right? The plant offers exudates, and phosphorus. So the microbes, the mycorrhizal require phosphorus. So a lot of cannabis gardeners that are well equipped in phosphorus still use mycorrhizal. And there's no point, because that connection, that trading off, that's the fundamental understanding of mycorrhizals. It only exists in a low phosphorus environment, which can be helpful if you want to add your phosphorus as you go. But if you got adequate phosphorus, I wouldn't focus on a mycorrhizal product. I would focus on a microbial product that contains some mycorrhizal in case you're doing a perpetual harvest. But once again, if you're the type of grower that takes soil and inoculates with mycorrhizal, you harvest that plant and you get rid of that soil, there's no point. If you're grown in a container, mycorrhizals are not gonna help you. Mycorrhizals will only help you when you have a network of roots living amongst each other where they can trade and coordinate one thing for another. So once again, an opportunity that the cannabis industry has taken to exploit us through marketing. But any fundamental biologist, microbiologist, plant biologist will thoroughly understand that there is a correlation between low phosphorus soils and mycorrhizal conductivity. This is more geared towards our Appalachian soils where we need to transfer phosphorus and it's in low amounts. Sorry, I ran again. I need to eat some rest.
Like Josh was saying, most of those products, you know, it'll say, you know, mycorrhiza on the front real big, but then you read the bottle and there's dozens and dozens, 70 different bacterias. And so it is all those other things that are also, is doing all the legwork. But, you know, if you're growing outdoor in the same garden again and again, it will eventually establish itself, you know. And so that's the, you know, with outdoor, that's the beauty of it. It's like you're not wasting any of your effort, you're not wasting any of your time, your money, and, you know, it's like you're just building on, it's like a bank account. You know, you're establishing that and you're putting it there and it's staying.
There's a cool company that, I can't remember the exact name, but they're an Israeli company and they went to the Dead Sea and they isolated, they isolated the bacteria that they found there, and they're like, well, if this can survive and live in this type of environment, let's try it with the plants. And they were like, it was astonishing. Now their whole line is from this bacteria that was gathered from the Dead Sea by this company. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna do like an outdoor, and I mean, I just have some clones that I'm about to put out there, they may not get that big, but
Yeah.
would it be better to like build a box if I was gonna use pots instead? I mean, for dirt, if I was gonna put like 12 out there or something, or should I just do, I mean, I don't know, I'm just asking like,
Depends
because
on what
I
you
can't put it directly in the ground because my backyard floods, so that ain't gonna work. So like, but I have a pad that I could put a box on. So it's like, do I put them up on something else and just do individual pots, or should I just build a big box and fill
Depends
them?
on what the size of them are or how big you're going. I mean, for instance, you could just use like a kiddie pool and fill that up with soil or something.
Oh, yeah.
A little harder to drag around if you have to worry about flooding. Not as deep maybe as you may want it to be, but they can grow out, so you may have to do a little bit more support.
Okay.
Or they, they have different sized grow bags, 100-gallon grow bag. I mean, it just depends on your access to medium to fill those.
Certainly the same
Yeah,
as
you're
a
right.
100-gallon bag.
Yeah, well, if you're gonna put 4, 5, 6, 8 plants in there, potentially.
Yeah,
yes.
But, something like that.
How much space do you think, I mean, if I'm pulling them out right now and I'm overgrowing.
Is it like a plant like this big?
Not even.
Okay. So you could probably do those, I don't know, 3 feet apart or something?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really sure.
That, and the variety.
Yeah, there's a lot of,
And keep in mind the focusing thing that we talked about, with trimming it up, that all depends on your situation. If you got shade coming this way, then you may need to trim it and focus it up more. That's all circumstantial on where the light's hitting in your garden. And if you're stationary in a bag, in a pot with 9 plants that you can't move, you're gonna focus, I call it focus, you're gonna focus those plants differently, depending on where that light can hit, because it's not moving.
Right.
put them up on pallets or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's like, feel really hippie tech, that's what I call it.
Thank you.
Is it too late to amend the soil with the Corsine, or
Absolutely not,
no?
no way.
Gotcha,
No.
but definitely not necessary or not beneficial to put in pots.
Well, like you said, it depends on, like, if you're just, there's some products that, yes, definitely are okay, I think, but yeah, if you're gonna.
Once again, it says microbials that will exist if you don't have a living plant in there. Back to mycorrhizals, they need a living host plant, right? So they can sporulate for some time, but if you are growing in a container and you're focusing on mycorrhizals, you're kind of missing the point, because you probably have enough phosphorus to where they're not creating that connection, and you're ripping that plant out of there and that soil's barren for a while. Microbial things like trichodermas and brachylies, like not mycorrhizal species that I would focus on if you're switching over.
So I just heard yes and no to the same question.
Well, I'm sorry. Well, like what he was saying yes to is like mycorrhizal products as they brand it in cannabis, because most mycorrhizal products contain microbes that aren't in the mycorrhizal family. But we throw around this term mycorrhizal, and then
Is that the same as mycorrhizae?
yeah, depending on your accent.
Okay.
Yeah, and so,
I've used it before in my garden, it sounds different than what I remember.
yeah, so this is like an integrated pest management, also, with this weather that we're having, we want to touch on root management. And all those things Josh was just saying, you're going to create that colony of these bacterias and microbes, beneficial microbes and bacterias, so that they can outcompete the negative or the harmful ones. And so that's like, now is really like the time to do it if you're not doing it. And these products that we're talking about, the company Plant Success, what was the one that you were talking about, Ronnie? The extreme gardening?
Yep, extreme gardening, they make azos and mycos. That's what I use every time I transplant. It does wonders, man. I don't know. That ain't my game. Like, these guys know all the soil biology. I don't know shit about that, to be honest. I really don't. I just use whatever fucking works. So I'm gonna learn that shit, but I don't know nothing about it.
But point being, you don't need to learn it. I've seen Ronnie's roots, right? Like, you don't need like, we're kind of diving into like some deep dive understanding. That's my fault. I go on these rants, but
And I
the
wanted to
point
switch
being,
to like living soil too, but these guys are like, 3 guys told me not to switch, so I got this shit figured out, so I'm just gonna stick to it. And maybe I don't care to learn that shit. Maybe I will one day though, but right now I'm just gonna stick to what I know. So I don't have time to really sit down and take and dive into a book right now. That's what I need to do, but these guys. I'll sit here and learn like you guys do. When they talk, I sit here and listen.
Well,
I don't know this shit either.
that's the advantage, right? We're all on a different journey.
I'm sorry for the English.
You're fine.
It's not the best English in the world,
okay.
but in Brazil, it's prohibited. So people who want to grow, they need all these
Sure.
tools, all these things that it can work because they are like in danger, so they need to make it's worth it,
Absolutely.
They don't have time to
Sure. They
to
do whatever.
learn
Yeah.
everything about it.
Yep, once you get something that you know how to do, then you're good. Like, yep, then you can adjust from there. But just getting that plant to grow and finish, get one to finish and get it through there healthy. Like, if you figure that out, you don't want to learn more. You just want to keep trying to dial in what you have learned, I feel like. So what I've learned over the years, all these just following directions. And that's what I do. Honestly, I follow directions.
And everybody see how much,
Attention, right?
everybody, how much we took off this plant here and see how different this plant looks.
Yeah, it
you
looks
know?
better.
I mean, we really opened up the inside and back to the pest management and things. This is gonna allow more airflow through.
And also, if you want to spray, before you spray, so you ain't if you got a bunch of plants, if you thin them out first, you ain't gonna be out there half the time you would be if you left all the other leaves on there. So if you're gonna spray, it's a good time to defoliate before you spray, make it easier on you.
Now, I have a question. So the flowering season will start next month, right?
Around August 1st, if you're doing outdoor in Ohio.
Yeah, depending on the
Okay.
genetics, yeah.
So do you think that people it will be a good advice to put more nitrogen in the soil?
Like the last one, just to get it through, you mean, I
Yeah,
guess, here?
to get it through.
I mean, yeah, if you really wanna blast off these last 2 weeks before they start setting in, but yeah, I mean.
Sorry to cut you off, Matt. I would really recommend understanding where your plant is personally, right? Before you go adding a bunch of nitrogen. Does it look like it's thriving? Is greenness, is the chlorophyll in the leaf not a problem? Then I would second guess adding some nitrogen depending on what form it's in. If it's in NH4, like I said, that organic nitrogen takes a while to convert into the inorganic forms like nitrate and nitrite that it needs to be in before it's absorbed. And when you hear this inorganic, please, don't be afraid. I'm getting in the weeds here. It doesn't mean that it was produced from inorganic nutrients. It just means plants just don't take up an organic form of nitrogen. That's just not how the soil food web works. They might take a little bit, but they need that conversion. So if you are relying on that conversion of organic to inorganic, you need more time.
Right.
If you're adding synthetic forms of nitrogen or inorganic forms of nitrogen, then you can put it on there like a Band-Aid. You don't have to worry about the time that it requires.
Are you just talking about like salt-based nutrients when you say synthetic? Like
No, well, I didn't mean synthetic. I mean inorganic forms,
Okay.
like in nitrate or nitrite
Okay.
form. You know, you're not necessarily relying on that soil food web to convert your ammonia nitrogens or urea into nitrate and nitrites,
So-
which is the form that's available to plants.
What's the best drip irrigation product to buy that's dissolvable for drip irrigation? Nitrogen.
Like I said, that turp tea, but I don't know, you know, I never personally used it.
like coconut?
Advanced nutrients, Cincy A and Cincy B. That's
Okay.
probably the best that you could do in a situation like that.
Question about outdoor, if I can. So what do you guys recommend? We have a lot of good cover crops in my home outdoor grows this year. They're coming in and helping with a lot of insects, but caterpillars are ones that I notice are a little bit different because they're like larval. I used BT oil last year. It's a pretty organic oil for that. What is your thoughts on that as far as like using a spray, foliar spray? Because I feel like we are entering flower, but at the same time, I didn't harvest until late October, early November last year because of Ohio's seasons. It's odd in Ohio. It doesn't have a typical season. It sun's out weird times. So yeah, I guess the question with that is the best BT oil is what I used last season, but would you recommend that or something else to help with caterpillars eating some of the families in our HomeGrow?
Grandiva? You know that one? Is that the right one? It's Grand.
I can tell you that I've never, and all the pests I've dealt with, I've never had to deal with that one, but I know Donnie, last year in his greenhouse,
We got them already.
Yeah, he's showing up.
We got them already.
Damn it.
he's got them already.
I don't like them.
So,
I discovered it last year.
BT is like an organic oil that kind of goes in and like kills the larvae.
Well,
and
BT
stuff.
is a
a
powder,
bacteria.
your BT oil must be dissolved in oil.
if you really have your state minimum, 12 plants, you're a resident, I suggest your eyes. Like, go out there as a max,
Physically.
like physically remove them. Because they are a macro invertebrate. I mean, by that, I mean, you can like see it, you don't have to
That's what I'm
like,
saying, they're very obvious to see.
yeah, like go inspect every branch if
I
you're
like
at your
spending my
limit.
time in
It
there, so-
obviously ain't great at 60 plants if
You
you're
know, they
breaking
can
them
roll
all
the
up.
whole thing in 48 hours.
Yeah.
Huh.
Get
Would
you
you
some
use a vacuum
kava,
on 'em?
get you some kava and some coffee, and just like crush it.
Sativa
Get
dabs,
up
yeah,
there.
Yeah, I got you. All right.
Joe?
Awesome, thank you.
I just want to agree with the original question. BT is great. You know, like right now you're in veg and you can go through and pick them off.
I'm not getting any pistil production yet, just a little bit of that pre-flower like sex, but not like pistil production. So that's why the bacteria felt okay without the like pistils and stuff on me yet. So
I was going to take that further actually. So they're easy to get now so you can see the damage. But once you get into flower, and if you have caterpillars, I would spray BT on your flower because they will get in your buds and the poop and the mold.
I had 2 buds that they found caterpillars in last season. It was kind of cool to watch, but I obviously had to remove it. But it was wild to watch them
Yeah,
dig
how
a
they,
home like a
you ain't lying. You find that web and you're just gonna keep looking and see a little green. Pretty wild, man.
But
They'll just go all the way through there.
BT doesn't help these army worms that come
Green
in,
worms.
you know,
right?
they land on the bud and then you put them in the bud. And those, I'm not sure how you do it other than keep the lights off your crops or anywhere around your crops and things.
That's where you gotta make sure nothing's over top of your plants, right?
Yeah.
Nothing, no trees are above them, mainly. That will happen if not. If you got trees, if you got anything above your plants, I feel like them bugs, them worms will get in there. So I've dealt with them outside every time I've grown outside.
Yeah.
I'm not this year, but every time I have, I've dealt with them things. I've always grown in the woods too. Last year I didn't deal with them, and I didn't grow
There's
in
a
the
lot of
woods.
trees and stuff nearby, and it's just it's awesome except for the worms.
Sure. I mean, this year, if this, you know, if we don't get a dry fall, all of those caterpillar droppings are going to create botrytis, which is bud rot.
Yeah.
And it's going, that will happen, so it's
Do you
like.
guys recommend like a canopy? Like what kind of canopy? Like because I don't have like the resources for an out.
An umbrella, whatever, build something simple, just cover it at
Just like some
night,
netting
dude.
over
Just
there?
throw a tarp over it at night, put 4 foot whatever, just cover it at nighttime would prevent a lot of issues.
Could you use one of those
I did
pop-up
tarp them
tents?
last season. It makes sense.
A what, a tent?
Pop-up tent?
Yep, anything really, just any kind of
I put like a
cover.
10 by 10 like can like an old like you know you do for the like you put your dinner tables right. I used to pop that. I pop one. of
Yeah,
those,
dude,
pop
that would
it
be
up,
ideal.
And then I also use a fan underneath the canopy to help with the air.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. How
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah, that would be
The
great.
same thing.
Anything to cover it, fans.
Senor, do you think that you can have this maybe rain in September? No.
Man, I think it's all manipulated fake rain, so I don't, who knows? That's how I feel, maybe not, but I really feel like it's all fake. But who knows?
If it's wet,
It's
like
all
it,
rain.
like it seems to
Wet.
be wet, like nothing compared with last year, what do you recommend for late September? I mean, people outdoor, what do you recommend?
Shake your plants every morning, walk out and shake the hell out of them.
And we talked about this last year, the great, awesome,
Yeah.
leaf blower.
Yeah, leaf
Yes.
You know, the leaf blower, dude, like you get out there. I never even thought about that until these
Last
guys
year,
brought that
the
up
day
last
after
year.
the class,
Yeah,
the day after the class that
They're
came out,
doing it.
it poured that night, and I was out there the next morning with my leaf blowers.
That's a great idea.
Last
That's
season
really
we
cool.
had
That made me.
2 months of that drought last season, and I was watering my plants and shaking them dry and leaf blowing them to teach them to be hydrophobic, and all my friends were laughing at me. And then when that 3 days of that hurricane came through towards the end of the season, all of my friends had to chop. I went another month, and I got 4 pounds out of two of my plants.
Hell yeah.
I was leaf blowing them all the time. He got super scared when he saw me leaf
Yeah, I
blow
was like,
our veg is they're like 3 feet tall. I was blowing them. He's freaking out. He's like, "The stems are breaking." I'm like, "Okay, stronger ones will go."
Hell yeah,
Like, out
dude.
there, they have the sun, man. They'll take on whatever you
just
throw at them.
anytime leaf blow them, just to build.
I like to build hydrophobic stuff in my buds. Like if they never get wet and dry, like this is an easier season, but like you can literally teach the buds like when the water's on there, you shake them off. So like especially when like the pistils and the trichomes come, they'll get hairier and more stuff on there to make it for the water to slide through that easier. Just as a natural reaction to you blowing it off or shaking it off.
So anytime they get wet, just do that.
Yeah, teach them to do that themselves.
So you shake them and leaf blow them?
Depending on the severity of the
Yeah, depending on how wet, really. If it's just dew, you can shake them, but if it's like a heavy rain, I would use leaf blower. Every morning though, I'd go out and once it starts setting in, every morning it's gonna be dewy outside. So I'd
Smoke
walk
a
out
J
there
and
and
shake your plants,
shake the
bro.
hell out of it. Drop the middle of that stalk and just let it rip. That's what yeah.
No stress, so
Yeah.
little boost, get the strength.
So if you wanted to go, balls to the wall, so to speak, you could buy, not to say that this ain't sufficient, but if you're really worried about mold and you wanna invest the money, you can buy a backpack fogger, and it's an atomizer, and you can also buy a product called Zero Tall. And that product is OMRI organic listed. And when you backpack spray
Hydrogen
Zero Tall, and you do that regularly, it's nearly impossible for molds to set through. And since it is what it is, you can do that even in late flowering. Deep into late flowering.
So the wettable sulfur though, I did that before I flipped on the flower and it killed all of that, and I haven't had any of the powdery mildew come back. That's in my grow room, but I haven't had any of it come back since I did that.
That's great. Now you're on the race, right?
Yeah,
Once you
to
slip
get it
that
done
clock,
before-
right? So like,
What do we think about diatomaceous earth for bugs outside? 'Cause I've used that for like crawlers and worms.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, that Donnie talked about the last class, and it's super underutilized, and so.
Is it bad for dogs? Is that true?
So
put it on dog
get the food grade stuff. You can buy food grade stuff.
Okay.
Just buy the food grade stuff. If it's got
Okay.
It's like if your dog brings it
bad for
in.
your lungs or for you to eat.
Yeah,
food grade stuff you can brew into tea, drink
Oh,
yourself.
okay.
And stuff. So food grade if you have dogs. But yeah, my dogs didn't like it, so I had to get food grade. I got pit bulls that love to defoliate.
Right.
So I had to, yeah.
I've sprinkled it on dog food.
And it's like a breathing hazard?
Food grade, yeah. You'll see that it's typically
Yeah.
more expensive because they have to make it a little bit smaller.
It's still
but
kind of like
for our
similar
dogs.
kind of dog,
Yeah.
but not really.
But if it gets wet, it's useless, right?
And you know, the best defense
Not
of
as
these
useful.
things
Yeah.
is plant health.
Less effective.
You know, doing all these things we're talking about, like establishing the bacterial colonies, establishing proper plant health so that your plants can fight these things off. I mean, they're not gonna fight off caterpillars, you know, but they will fight off the molds, they will fight off the rot, you know, and ultimately, I think that's like the best approach is to either, if you're making them yourself or buy a product.
What do you guys have any recommendations? I really like Meg's, like the Meg's fertilizer brand. Their stuff's good. I got a sample of like actual recharge from a friend recently, which has been pretty nice. It's like the Myco brand. Do you guys have any personal recs on those?
I use Recharge, I like it, it's got the molasses, I think, in there, right?
Yeah, and
It's
it
got
helps
a
with
few
the
other
consistency
things.
with the molasses, because I used to have to mix my mountain in there, but that one already has it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, I got good.
Recharge for
what do you think, Donnie, about
Recharge in a
the?
bright yellow.
What's it from? What is
Real
what makes
growers,
this?
I'm not sure.
Real growers?
Real growers, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the Meigs County fertilizer brand?
I love it. This is my first grow I'm using it, and it's killing.
Donnie, what do you think? Me neither, no
You
comment.
don't like it?
I think they're from New Albany.
I don't think the lady ever set foot in Meigs County until she wanted.
I've got
to
the
make
samples,
a
but I'm not
fertilizer.
familiar, that's why I'm asking this room, so I was curious.
I've heard a lot of great things about them. I will say that.
The nutrients seem to work good.
And
The
so it's
branding kind of pushes buttons.
Okay, thank you.
So, Senor, one question. So, do you think, maybe it's a stupid question, pardon me,
No
okay?
stupid question.
Do you think that the growers should have special measures for October if it's this wet, like it is now? I mean, special measures like in the post-harvest, actions, like, what I mean? I don't know, what a special measure could be. Put all these type of, taking humidity out, what is it?
The pruning, are you just all-inclusive special measures, or preparing for this wetness that we're gonna experience?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what, I think that getting over-colonizing with beneficial bacterias and,
Labs.
Yeah, that's the approach this year, is really, not so much the NPK, but the everything else. Because like in a wet year like this, if I was traditionally, I do bagged organic fertilizer. If I was I've got something that's like 5-4-6, this year I would go with my 3-4-3. And up my game on bacterias and beneficials.
I think with the weather and depending on the size of your plant, you might run into lack of oxygen in the root zone because your plant is wet for too long. In that case, I don't know. There's some ways. I know we got an expert in the back of the house here today, but I won't call him out. But I think like measuring like oxygen and water in the root zone, it correlates with each other, right? As moisture goes up, oxygen levels go down, and as oxygen levels go up, moisture goes down. So you can have it both ways. Like you can literally have a plant suffocating to death because you have too much water in that root zone. So think about ways to not water your plant if it's too wet, or how to kind of either deflect or reduce the amount of water that's able to enter your root zone. Eric?
Is there a way to, if you focus on, like we were talking just about, like, defoliating some of the lowers, and then like if you're more diligent with the leaf blowing and the shaking off, would that cause them to, since you're drying off the leaves, is that going to cause the roots to actually try and drink up more because they're not getting any moisture? Like, you're basically fucking up the DPD on purpose to make the roots drink up more rather than that. Because like, how else are you going to dry up your soil?
Deflection of water.
Yeah.
So like just from this up, so just don't even let it get wet first.
Yeah.
Plastic.
You know
it's
the
hard to
rain's
get
coming.
Yeah.
You've got 6 plants in a row, get a piece of plastic that long, cut a stick for the stem, put it over it.
Okay.
Dry sawdust.
I got so lucky that you're doing this on accident. This is cool.
What? That's something that
Dry.
how proactive you want to be. Mulching, mulching really allows you to control a lot of the moisture. If you're heavy mulch and it's staying wet, you can
So
pull
we
the
did a bunch
mulch
of cover
off.
crops. They're tall enough now. What kind of mulch? Like, would hay be good, or what kind of like just straight up mulch in there, like with hay and that kind of stuff? Or what would you recommend for that?
Crimping your cover crop, if it's tall enough, just smash it down. You can look on the internet. There's ways to you take a 2x4, drill a hole in both ends, and run a string so you can hold it and step on it. You put another little board to make a crimp, and you just walk and step, walk and step.
I literally was just telling her about that and basically making your own little, okay.
Yeah,
And then
I mean, that's like,
taking rocks from the property to fill in there, would that help just to guide water flow, or would that really just be not as beneficial? That's more landscaping, less ag flow.
Depends on how effective you can make your machine.
I mean, if you have an abundance of water glazing in from somewhere onto your cultivation area, for sure, stack stones, move it, get it,
The whole property drains into a creek, that's why I'm asking, so basically guiding the water away from the beds, but through the valleys. Okay, that makes sense.
There's a thing in landscaping and building called a curtain drain, which is just a trench filled with gravel, You know, if you've got a spot that's gonna constantly get wet, you know, like I got a greenhouse like that, even a 6-inch trench will mitigate that water, so then it'll allow your top to dry off a little more. Even just digging little trenches along your beds will give you like a raised bed effect where it'll allow that top to dry out a little bit and the lower to stay moist. And that could just mean the difference in your roots rotting or not this kind of season we're having.
Thank you guys.
So can we please, are we down where we can ask?
We didn't really get up sexting yet.
Who's in a position now where they need to sex their plant?
Does anybody not know how to sex?
You need to sex before the next class?
Yeah.
Yes.
Looks like, yeah.
Quick rundown, where you're gonna wanna look is the nose of the plant, where the plant's spreading out a new branch. For the female, you're going to get a white, oh, here we go. For the females, you're gonna get what looks like a little white hair coming out of there, and that's gonna be a female. The male, often it just looks like a little knob, a little green knob, and then as it gets a little bigger, it'll look like a Phillips screwdriver, and then it'll throw those out, which looks like, it'll look like little clusters of bananas. Unless you want seeds, don't let it get that far. Here, if you have neighbors growing and you like them, don't let it get that far. And then we have the third, which is a hermaphrodite, which will do both.
You don't want that either.
You don't,
It's gonna. Yeah, right. It'll be.
and a lot of folks, you know, this with the cloud coverage this year, a lot of folks are already showing early flowering, or maybe they have the whole year. And so, you know, if you're not having any sign of flowering, good job. And most of you, if you haven't seen it yet, you go home and you start looking for it. You'll start to see the first flowers cycle, or like sexing will come out from, usually right there, there'll be a single calyx where the branches come out, and then that'll throw the little white hair out. And that's when you're like, okay, I got most likely a female. And then the only other option is that it will turn hermaphrodite, which means the male flowers will start shooting out in a number of ways, but usually it's like later after the bud starts to develop, and then you'll start noticing the male flower as well.
See, I'm gonna ask you something if it's true or not. So if you have like 18-hour, 6-hour period in indoors or 24-hour indoor, and you put the plant outside when there's the flowering season, it will, you know, trigger the flower, right?
Yeah.
But what about if you put inside the indoor a paper bag in one of the branches? Will it still show it?
I'm not sure about that, but I've definitely know that people will just cut a branch
And put it
and
outside?
put it in a cup of water, and then just switch it from the closet. You know, especially if you're trying to, you're a breeder, or you're trying to learn something about your genetics, or, you know, do I have a male? This looks like a male. It's twice as tall as the rest. You know, it's usually, if it's the same variety, we'll say it's all one, and it's all seed, it's not feminized, and everything looks uniform, and there's two plants that are this tall compared to the ones that are this tall. Most of the time in my world, I've found that those are usually to be the males. And then so if you're hoping like, oh, this is a real good one, I want that vigorous growth, you could just cut a branch and put it in a cup of water, and then do the 12 to 12, you know, force flower. You can do it in your house, stick it in the closet for 12 hours, pull it out, and it'll show sex.
I totally forgot about that trick. Thank you for reminding me.
If you're
That is
outside,
the best way.
or outside, you just put it in the shade too. That's what you should do, is put the plant in
Yeah.
the shade, and then it's gonna tell you.
Or you can contact.
Yeah, but
Green
then you got the whole
Office
plant
and
in
take a
shade.
leaf sample and
What
send
he's
it over
saying,
$10
just
and
take
have
the
sex like that in line by the
like that is a.
That's available?
I believe so.
Yeah.
What are you saying?
You can take and for $10, they'll send you one of the cryo tubes. You just put it on a leaf, close it. It's got the sample in there. You send it off. $10. They'll tell you within 3 days if it's in there.
$10?
I think it's $10. Yeah, it might be a few bucks for viruses. Yeah, that's a lot more costly, but that's doable. Yep. Yeah, HLVD. I guess what they can test for. Well, after our last debate. Well, yeah, I was gonna say powdery mildew, but it may or may not be systemic, so we left it last time.
Oh, here we go, we'll leave that just touchy subject. Just leave that for after hours.
Why would they have, they have testing for it to see if it's, like they say, you have to get the Ameristem to be clean.
Just spray sulfur before flour and you're good.
Yep.
Swear to God.
So I'm Argentinian, so
Right.
I'm thrilled to be here. I have to ask questions.
Yeah.
So do you have a place where you can buy clones that are made in a lab, like
Tissue culture?
Yeah, like
Yes.
the pathogen clean.
Tissue culture, yeah, like Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3 type thing, yeah.
So they send it to your house?
Yes. Yep.
And is it made in Ohio?
Not in Ohio.
Not in Ohio.
No, likely not. You may be able to find somebody in Ohio, but I
There's
don't
people
know.
doing it, but.
Colorado for sure, California for sure. I can got one source that offers tissue culture Gen 1s or Gen 2s.
So is there tissue culture for other plants in Ohio?
Say that again?
For other type of vegetables in Ohio? Like fruit plants?
Are they available in tissue culture? Maybe somewhere, or someone who's preserving that variety or has whatever.
So I mean, if they do the practice of tissue culture in other vegetables?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Probably it's an easy way to mass.
Yeah, big scale operation.
Have them clean, and you just have this. I mean, like the little teeny thing. Like smaller than that in a little while. We had a guy come and do it at our place in Nelsonville. It takes some additives if you're trying to, once you get to a certain point, or grow it, or go in veg, or however, I can't remember the details.
Interesting.
Just add a juice to the gel that would allow it to have nutrients and grow.
You have to refrigerate that stuff?
Ours is not, ours is just under a light. And,
To keep it viable? You have to use-
As far as agar and stuff?
Yeah.
I think you just mix,
Or in the agar?
Yeah.
It's a paper, right?
Yeah, you can do it, yeah, I don't know how.
It's just so new, and like relatively,
And not many people around the world.
No, and it doesn't, there's no economy in it to sell to people. It takes actual skill, it takes dedication, it takes passion, it takes
Education.
desire, why, and and so you can't label it and sell it to somebody.
Well, too, you're gonna,
So
if you're gonna have it so it's clean, that you're getting that little bit of the meristem, so it's like, remember Josh, it's like under a microscope, with the things on, you get in there, you get the teeniest, tiniest, teeniest microscopic piece of new growth off of that tip of that plant, so that the infection or whatever has not gone to that point yet, even though it's present in the rest, that's so fresh and new, it hasn't been exposed to it yet.
And that's a whole art form,
Yeah.
right?
It's crazy to watch.
As growing up,
That would be, and that's, think about how affordable
So in
something
other
like
words-
that is. But then people will do that, so you can take that, they'll grow that up, and then they'll sell clones off of that plant that they grow up. And that's what would be a Gen 1, a Generation 1 from a tissue culture, or a Generation 2 from
but that hump costs money, right? Because we make it
Long
sound
periods
so
of time,
easy.
months, yeah.
If you're a biologist, you're like, oh, I know about tissue culture. We'll just tissue culture some stuff. When you see the skill it takes to dissect an apex and meristem, trust me, if you've had even a hint of coffee, if you've had anything stimulant in any way, you are not going to be able to do this successfully. You think using an X-Acto knife to extract a little piece of something is very within your grasp, and I would beg to differ that it takes a lot of skill. It isn't like cloning a plant.
Microscope.
What, not only just like even through that microscope, like, that looks still, like I'm not moving my hands. But the truth of the matter is my hands are vibrating at a level that is nearly impossible to dissect in the stuff. I find so much love and admiration for the people that actually can do this at a high level.
One question for what you're saying. So do you think that people without the tissue culture, without it, can achieve the levels of cleanness that they have, like when it comes out of the lab, and the level of immunity system going, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You know? So you think that we can achieve that without going through tissue culture?
People clean plants.
It's so circumstantial, right? The best way to clean some plants is to start from seed and recreate it.
But people do clean stuff up just by like company maintenance. I don't know. People do that.
Well, they clean them up slowly, in my opinion.
I feel like
I might be
we had
overstepping
tissue culture
my.
back in the day. I never always had clean, fucking healthy plants for 12 years, right?
Storage or preservation.
They don't change the genetics though, do they? The
Well,
tissue culture
Preserving
can't
that
add
genetic.
or subtract a feature.
The truth is everything kind of does that. Even if we don't think that it does,
Yeah.
it does. In some ways, like genetic drift is real. Just like when people say, oh, you're taking a clone. It's an identical DNA replica of the plant you took it from. But that's not necessarily true. For instance, when you take a clone from here, and then you repeatedly take a clone from down here, you are getting, this clone is genetically identical to this part of the plant. This clone is genetically identical to this part of the plant. Just like if we were to take skin cells from our own body. Different cells do different things slowly through time. You think you're taking the same thing, but my understanding is, and I may not be right on this, but there's expressions that also play into that. This genetic material may express different than this, even if it is identical, because of some other variable that maybe somebody else understands more than me. I kind of think that's where my understanding falls off. It's kind of fascinating to think about the fact that a clone is not really a clone. And I've watched that happen room after room after room, where I'd have healthy moms, and I'd come by and cut all the tops off of these healthy moms, one by one. And I would root those in 2 or 3 bins. And then I'd come back and cut all the bottoms off of those, and I would root those. And over time, I created 2 different versions of what was said to be a genetically identical representation. So that's the weird thing, like Multiplicity, the movie. Have you guys seen that? Back in the day, an old 80s movie, there's like 3 versions of the dude that gets cloned from a clone. I think it's Tom Hanks.
So yeah, let me understand, okay?
I don't understand. Don't act like I know. I'm freely talking.
Let's
here.
say,
Hoping engagement.
I don't know if I'm totally 100% agreeing with you,
Yeah, I hope you're not, because you'd be in trouble.
Hell yeah.
Because
There is hope.
what about if you go to the tissue culture? Do you think that if you pick up a leaf from the bottom will be different than from the top?
Yes, I do.
I don't think so.
I get it, and I'm only going by my own
Okay, so
observations
that's what-
because I can't understand the genetic
But when you was
Bible.
doing that, that's what, when we're cutting clones, you was taking the smaller snips, and so that's why I'm like, as you're saying that, I'm like, you know what I mean?
I think it's expression more than DNA, but you're gonna see an expression that you can find later.
So you think if you cut the top and bottom off that plant, you clone them, when they grow up, you think the top's gonna be different than that?
I think when we said cloning, we mean it's a genetic identical to the portion of that body that you took it off of. So I don't think that a skin cell would necessarily on our bodies be the same as a fingernail
But
DNA.
let me ask, this is a nice debate, I love it. You know?
I don't know this, I'm just
Me
talking
neither.
off
It's
my
our
stone
opinions,
ass at
yeah.
this point.
It's
It's
our
like,
opinions.
we're down the rabbit hole.
Let me ask you for the debate, okay? Let me ask you. When you have this plant, you know, outdoor, and you know, all of a sudden you spread the arms of the plant, right? And you get more colas when you do that. And some plants make healthy colas just as big as the main middle cola. Just as big and just as good. And the same thing. So how do you explain that? If it was weaker and you put it in the sound conditions with the good sun, with the good light, the good conditions spread, they would just breathe the same.